Bible prophecy is active and unfolding daily. Zechariah 12, Isaiah 17, Psalm 83, Ezekiel 38. Here is what the LameStream Media is not telling you.
Shalom, my friends. Welcome to this week's newscast. Last week, we saw a lamb was sacrificed near the Temple Mount. And I pretty much ignored it because, as I stated in last Thursday's live stream, I didn't see any prophetic significance to it. And I never noticed them doing it before. But my thought was like, where's the temple? You know. Anyway, as it turns out, it's just something they do every Pesach, every Passover. Still practicing all the events that should have gotten their attention to the real event 2,000 years ago, and still ignoring the real event, the appearance of Mashiach 2,000 years ago. Oh well. Silly stuff, not worth reporting after all, my friends. Turning to my personal thoughts, all I can think about, my friends, is another snowstorm yesterday morning here in New Jersey. And the spring weather, nonetheless, beginning to show signs of me finally being able to get outside again for my Walking in the Word video series. Turns out, you know, the last time I did a walk in the Word was December 7th, nearly 4 months ago. And I've enjoyed these sitting in the Word videos. They sure bring out yet another side of me. But isn't it interesting how different my thoughts are when I'm outside in the fresh air with the squirrels and the birds and the train blasts away off in the distance and unexpected meetings with precious neighbors like Nancy, who walks around with her blind person's cane. Pretty soon, my friends, pretty soon. Turning to wars and rumors of wars, from Al Jazeera, at least 37 people, mostly women and children, were killed, and 80 others were injured last week after the Syrian government forces bombed an underground shelter with napalm in eastern Ghouta. A local resident said the air raid hit 2 shelters connected by a corridor. The airstrike entered through one shelter, where it exploded and killed everyone in it. Then the fires spread through to the second shelter, which soon became totally engulfed in flames. Turning to our Intifada update, on Tuesday, March 27th, from the Jerusalem Post, Israeli forces detained 3 Israeli Arabs carrying knives and hand grenades who had infiltrated 20 kilometers into Israel from Gaza. Then on Thursday, March 29th, from the Times of Israel, Israeli troops opened fire at Israeli Arab rioters who tried to damage the security fence around Gaza. 200 Israeli Arabs took part in violent protests at 4 locations, lighting fires and throwing rocks at Israeli soldiers on the other side. The soldiers targeted 5 of the main instigators who were trying to pull down portions of the fence. Then on Friday, March 30th, from the Times of Israel, Friday's march in Gaza was a dress rehearsal for the main event planned for 6 weeks from now, when mass protests are planned for Nakba Day, when Israeli Arabs mark the catastrophe of the creation of Israel. What? Typical. And the ensuing war, Nakba Day, is also when the United States will inaugurate its new embassy in Jerusalem. The IDF spokesperson reported last Friday that 17,000 Israeli Arabs rioted in 5 locations along the Gaza Strip security fence. The rioters were rolling burning tires and hurling firebombs and rocks at the security fence and IDF troops, who responded with riot dispersal means, firing towards the main instigators. Then from the New York Times, as many as 30,000 Israeli Arabs arrived on Friday at tent encampments on Gaza's side of the border with Israel to stage what was billed as the start of a peaceful 6-week sit-in. But as some began hurling their peaceful stones, tossing their peaceful Molotov cocktails, and rolling their peaceful burning tires at the fence, the Israelis responded with tear gas and gunfire. Turning to our review of last week's news, at least 37 people, mostly women and children, were killed and 80 others injured last week after Syrian government forces bombed an underground shelter with napalm in eastern Ghouta. Israeli forces detained 3 Israeli Arabs carrying knives and hand grenades who had infiltrated 20 kilometers into Israel from Gaza. Israeli troops opened fire at Israeli Arab rioters who tried to damage the security fence around Gaza. 200 Israeli Arabs took part in violent protests at 4 locations, lighting tires and throwing rocks at Israeli soldiers on the other side. Friday's march in Gaza was a dress rehearsal for the main event, planned for 6 weeks from now, when mass protests are planned for Nakba Day, when Israeli Arabs mark the catastrophe of the creation of Israel and the ensuing war. And Nakba Day is also when the U.S. will inaugurate its new embassy in Jerusalem. And as many as 30,000 Israeli Arabs arrived on Friday on Gaza's side of the border, while 17,000 Israeli Arabs rioted in 5 locations along the Gaza Strip security fence last Friday. And that, my friends, is what the LameStream Media is not telling you. Abba willing, I'll see you here again next week. Until then, keep your wicks trimmed and keep your lamps ablaze. Shalom, my friends.
I don't like crowded rooms. I need more space than I consume. Enough is time alone with you, underneath a naked moon, sharing confidential moods and making chatter. Mockingbird nocturnal sings notations of eternal things, entering the quantum breeze, flying not for want of wings. He lights his gaze on you and me, simply because we matter.